Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast. They can be found on blainesworld.net. That's probably your best bet. And if you go to blainesworld.net, you can then catch the podcast on Spotify. You can catch it on just about anywhere else, YouTube, Facebook, you name it. But go to blainesworld.net, and that's where you will see today's podcast. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce certainly one of the most positive guys I know, and he is Patrick Fitzsimmons. And Patrick, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay, you want to wave to everybody? There you go. And in the words of Patrick himself, I quote, "He's a good guy trying to do good things." And that's certainly Patrick. And before we get into the actual show itself, I'll ask you maybe, Patrick, to highlight your background, which is certainly kind of eclectic in nature. In other words, you've done some different kinds of things in your life. When you were a kid, where'd you grow up as a kid?
Well, I grew up as an Air Force brat. So we moved around a lot. But the family is originally from Kansas.
Okay.
And so I grew up in a very Midwestern kind of family culture, even though we moved around a lot.
And when you were moving around and as a kid growing up, did you always know that sometime you wanted to be a mayor of a city in Western North Carolina? Was that your goal in life?
It was not a known aspiration, Blaine. But I've always had an interest in leadership in general and in some type of political leadership. So I'm not surprised I ended up here, but it wasn't exactly a plan or an aspiration.
As a kid, do you remember what you wanted to be?
Yes. I can remember when I was a kid playing the teacher, and I wanted to be a teacher because I loved my teachers. I thought teachers were great. And I wish teachers had that kind of respect and that kind of love that I had when I was a kid. So I can remember I was the oldest of 7 kids. And I would make my young siblings, sit in the classroom while I was being the teacher with the blackboard and being the teacher. And I thought that was so cool. And I wanted to be a teacher. And in some way, I kind of still would want to be a teacher.
I was going to say that in many of the things I know you through BizWorks and certainly now what you're doing, you are still a teacher. But you never formally became a teacher?
I did not.
So you went to high school, you went to college. What was your first job out of college?
My first job out of college was I was at the American Red Cross.
Oh, wow!
Organization, and working with the Red Cross, something that really appealed to the rescuer instinct into me, because it's all about emergency services of various sorts. And so I was with the Red Cross for 28 years, a great career, really loved it. And then I retired from the Red Cross several years ago, and then worked for Dogwood Alliance, which is a great local-based environmental organization for a couple of years. I loved it. Wasn't quite the best match for me, but I loved the people and I loved the work. And then I worked for several years as the executive director of Mountain BizWorks, which is a long-time local organization to this region that does entrepreneur financing and entrepreneur education and really does incredibly impactful work at developing our local economy. And I'm really proud of the work I did there. And it's interesting that many of the things I learned there, I'm now implementing as the mayor of a town in our area.
Well, back to Mountain BizWorks, then I want to also revisit the Red Cross. But boy, do I think you were a perfect fit for that. If ever there was a great fit, I think, and a perfect position for you, that seemed to me the perfect position for you. You fit in well, you seem to enjoy it, you really did a lot of good stuff. So that was something that, how long were you with them?
I was with Mountain BizWorks for 6 years, this last 6 years of my career, if you will, or more or less. And I always loved the work that Mountain BizWorks did. I was very familiar with their mission and with their the work they were doing in our area, and I always thought very highly of it. But at the time when that job became available, I had retired from the Red Cross. I didn't think I wanted to do nonprofit management anymore because I'd done it for my whole life. But some of the board members there knew me and they recruited me to come apply, and I did. And I got to say, it turned out to be a great decision. because we really turned the organization around. And I have always worked in organizations, either as a paid person or as a volunteer person who was working on social justice issues. And I got to tell you, when I was working at Mountain Business, that was an area or a time when I felt I was really making an impact on social justice, because it's an amazing thing what happens when you actually empower people financially and economically to start businesses and change your economy. That is real stuff. And that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that. I still do.
And also, you were talking before about the Red Cross. It amazes me, 28 years. So were you like the youngest guy who ever, you started what, at age 7 when you started with Red Cross? Were you the youngest person?
I started with the Red Cross right out of college. So I was like, a young man.
Yeah.
And I started working there in their emergency services department, helping disaster victims and helping people who were in the military with emergencies. And that really appealed to me because I do have an innate rescuer kind of archetype. But then I proceeded to work from there and became a director person, and ended up running the Western North Carolina region, which of course is the most beautiful region of all, and had a great time running the organization for several years.
And talking about the several years with the Red Cross, we should also give a shout out to my producer, who doesn't want to be mentioned, by name, but we'll mention her anyway, Cappy Tassetti. And I understand you had the privilege or honor of working with Cappy when she was with the Red Cross also?
I had the great privilege of having Cappy Tassetti several years ago to be the volunteer coordinator at the local Asheville region American Red Cross. And Cappy, as you know, Blaine, as well as I do, Cappy is a wonderful person and a wonderful person to work with. And let me just tell you a story, because I know Cappy will be totally embarrassed if I tell you this. That's all the reason why I will tell you. So I hired Cappy as a volunteer coordinator, and she was great at this job because she's so enthusiastic,
Right, yeah.
and she wants to involve everyone, and she's just a great presence. And so Cappy was working with us, and as is inevitable with staff, you have staff conflicts, and there was some issue that came up again with one of the staff persons, and this person came to me and they said, Cappy is just too much. She's so happy and she's so enthusiastic and she's so ready to go. And so I said, so you want to tell this person to be less happy? Is that what the hell you're asking me? So Cappy, good for you.
Yeah, no, great story. And that is Cappy. And Cappy, if you're embarrassed, so be it, but you deserve to be. She is the best. But that is so funny. So you then leave from Red Cross, Mountain Biz Works. What got you into elected politics, or politics in general? How did you become active?
The reason I became active, Blaine, is because this is how, especially on a local level with local politics, that is where the decisions are made that affect your life. You may think that the big, fancy, high-paid, high-dollar political campaigns for president and senate what make a difference. But you know what? What's really making a difference is who your mayor is, who your council member is, who your commissioner is. That's who makes the decisions that really affect your life. And I've always been someone who's been inclined towards leadership, and I want to be involved, and I want to be able to make decisions about my community. And so I was driven to do that. So I I ran for council here in Weaverville in 2015, and was a council member for a few years, and then became mayor in 2020.
And the incredible story you told me off the air, which I'd like you to share, is the fact that some people, think that money is the root of all evil in politics, and people only with lots of money, such as you, of course, have lots of money and decide to become involved. But if you can share the story of the fact that when you ran, it didn't cost you all that much money. Is that correct?
That is correct. I was advised to spend lots of money on advertising and blah, blah, blah. But that is not the best way to communicate to your community, I don't think. And so, as it turns out, in law, if you spend less than $1,000 on your campaign, you don't have to have a committee or file financial reports, which are a big pain in the butt, to be honest. So I was very conscious of not doing that. So I raised $950, and I spent $946. I had $4 left in my campaign chest.
And nice thing, you didn't
But the
also have
important
to.
thing is I used it wisely, and I won my election with 72% of vote. So even though we had someone of the far right who was running against me, we trounced them, and I feel very proud of that. And I did it on $946.
Did the other person spend more money, you think?
I don't know. I kind of suspect now, but I don't know that.
But the incredible thing, too, I know you were disappointed in the fact that you then didn't have to file a report. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that is a big, let me tell you, those things they're just a hassle, you know? So if you can avoid the hassle, but I think the important thing is, you know, right now, many good people are scared away from being involved in politics because they think they're going to be harassed, and they will. And they think they're going to be called names, they will. And they think it's going to be difficult, and they will, and it will be. But you know what? That's exactly what the bad people are hoping will happen, and the good people will be scared away. And I say, do it, damn it. Just go for it. Yeah, you're going to be called names. So what? You know what? If we, as good people, back out of politics, bad people get to make the decisions. That cannot happen in our country. So if you're a good person, do it. Get involved, run, be involved in the decision-making processes of your community.
Well, one of the cool things I think about you, Patrick, is the fact that not only have you gotten involved and very active, but you actually seem to enjoy it. You know, is that true?
It is true. I'm enjoying it. You know, I'm a real extrovert kind of person, so I enjoy meeting all the people in town. And
you're extroverted?
You know, everyone wants to tell you their opinion about absolutely everything, but you know what? I like that. It's okay. And I'm getting better at saying even like, well, I appreciate that, but I don't agree. That's a good thing. That kind of discourse is what democracy is about. So I'm getting better at saying, I like that or I don't like that. It's okay. But the important thing is that kind of discourse. That's how our communities really develop in a way that we build the communities we all want to love.
What's your favorite part about being mayor of Weaverville?
You know, I will tell you one thing, Blaine. This job will consume as much time as you allow it, for one thing. But my favorite thing is bringing people together, getting people to have different opinions to agree that, well, I don't necessarily like that, but this is the best thing for my town or for my county or whatever. And getting people to see that their interests are actually more aligned than they might have thought. You know, we're living in a very polarized political society right now. And we all think that the liberals are nutballs or the conservatives are fascists, whatever. But you know what? When you're talking about the town you live in, we're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about the way we deal with each other as a town. And guess what? Most of the times we agree, even if we're nutballs or...
Well, and talk about something, again, I mentioned you and I were talking off the air, but I think it's one of the incredible success stories in Weaverville about how this center got off the ground. And for the folks who are not aware of it, could you just talk a little bit about what I'm referring to?
One of the things we're very proud of, Blaine, in recent times is we have recently just completed construction of our community center at Lake Louise. Now, if you don't know Lake Louise is our city park. It's very beautiful, very scenic. And on one side, we built a new community center, which is absolutely beautiful. It turned out better than we expected. It's got all the bells and whistles, you know, the lights that shine up, they shine down, they shine sideways, and speakers that do everything. It's really a fantastic place to have everything from a wedding to any kind of corporate meetings. We do rent it out, and I encourage you to check it out. It's very reasonably priced, and it's beautiful. The views are incredible, and we're very pleased with it. And now, on the area that's behind the new community center, we're building a recreation complex. And so we have recently had a public meeting, and we asked people to tell us, what is it you want to be built in this recreation area? Let me just tell you, and I can tell you also, because I happen to also be the chairman of the Land and Sky Regional Council, which is a council of governments for our region. And I can tell you that every mayor in our area is dealing with this. the pickleball forces came out in mass and they said, build pickleball courts. And so we are, Donna. We will have 4 designated pickleball courts, I think the first in the county. But anyway, we'll have pickleball courts and basketball courts and lawn games and nature trail. It's going to be beautiful. This beautiful community center on the lake with behind it all this recreation complex. So it's going to be a wonderful place. You should come up and play pickleball, Blaine, because after all, Weaverville is the place to be.
Well, talk about then the center. Also, that impresses me and other folks as well is who runs it and how is the programming done.
Well, I'm glad you asked that because we do have a recreation manager who kind of runs the center and everything. However, we've got all this programming being done. We have 26, I believe, instructors who are offering their time for free as volunteer instructors to teach everything from yoga to Tai Chi to creative writing to just a host of things. And a variety of programs they're putting on from storytelling to music events, etc. In fact, I believe even some plays that Blaine Greenfield's been involved with. And all these things are done by and coordinated by a host of volunteers. I'm so impressed with our group that coordinates this because in many cities, this would be a costly thing. You have to hire staff to do to coordinate all this. And in our city, it is all done by volunteers who live here locally. So it's a beautiful thing. Come check us out. If you don't live in Weaverville, we still welcome you here and you will be duly impressed.
Well, I was going to ask you in terms of using the center. So 2 things. First of all, she mentioned the website is what, Patrick?
Well, our town website is weavervillenc.org.
Okay.
We're trying to update that, but check us out now. And the group that actually organizes all the events at the community center is and I hate to say, I forget the name, we call it WICL, the Weaverville Center for Creative and Healthy Living. And they have a website too. So check them out. And really, there's a lot of cool stuff going on at the community center and in Weaverville. We are Hipsterville, Blaine.
And you can also, we should mention to folks, they get on the mailing list and get the newsletter and a lot of good information on that. You mentioned in terms of checking you out, is the center available, you said, for rental? Do people have to live in Weaverville to use it or can other people use it?
No. So what happens is during the weekdays, it is reserved for all the various activities we have going on, all of which are free, by the way. All of which are free to the community. And then on the weekends, it's reserved for rentals, everything from, weddings to, political events or whatever. And the cost to rent the facility is actually pretty reasonable. So I encourage you to check this out if you want to have an event. This is a great place to have one.
And as you said, which is really unusual, so you don't absolutely have to be a Weaverville resident?
You do not have to be a Weaverville resident. Now, I will tell you, if you are a Weaverville resident, you get a discount.
Sure.
But if you're not a Weaverville resident, it's still very affordable.
Great addition. Again, kudos to you and, being here, I guess, when it opened up. You were here, I guess, when it opened up.
Yeah.
Very exciting place.
We just opened up several months ago, last fall.
Talk to me what else is exciting happening in Weaverville. So you encourage, how do you describe it before you describe this?
It's Hipsterville. Weaverville is a great town. It's beautiful because we have a small town atmosphere, but we're 15 minutes from downtown Asheville. And Weaverville's going through a big transition demographically and culturally. It's amazing how many new people moved into town who are working from home or digital nomads and quite the part of the new economy. But there's several cool events happening with. First of all, if you go to downtown Weaverville, you're going to love it. It's quaint, it's charming, it's the kind of place you want to live. And who doesn't want to live here? Everyone wants to live here. Unfortunately, living here is hard. Trying to find a rental is next to impossible. And unfortunately, also because we're so popular right now, that even the price of housing is worse than Asheville. It's very high. It's very expensive. But we're working to try to improve that and try and try and find ways, as all many cities are in our area, to find more affordable housing. But Weaverville is where it's happening. And, we're expecting a large number of people to move into Buncombe County in the next decade. In fact, it is predicted between 50 and 80,000 people, 20,000 housing units will be developed in Buncombe County in the next decade. Many of those, if not most of those, will happen in North Buncombe County because South Buncombe County is already built up, right? And if you live in North Buncombe County, the reality is Weaverville is town. That's where you go to shop, that's where you go to restaurants, that's where you go to the library, that's where you go to the parks. We're the town of North Buncombe County, and we are looking to make sure that we do that very well in the coming decade.
I think I got my first exposure to Weaverville, of course, with Well Bred Bakery. Just an incredible operation. Talk now about Well Bred Bakery. What are some other places that people should know about in Weaverville?
Well, first of all, Weaverville Bakery is an amazing tourist attraction in and of itself. And now Weaverville Well Bred they have a location in Biltmore Village.
Exactly, yeah.
They have one at downtown. What's the name of Blaine? I'm missing the name. The mall downtown.
Okay.
Anyway, so they've got, I think, 3 or 4 locations now. But they started and they are a Weaverville business, and they're very popular, and you should definitely go there. But we have lots of other wonderful things in Weaverville. Being a town in West North Carolina, we've got 4 breweries. We've got 3 or 4 really good coffee shops. We've got 3 or 4 massage parlors. We've got 3 or 4 art galleries because we are a proverbial town in West North Carolina, and it's a great place, and we're becoming a tourist attraction ourselves in itself. And so I encourage everyone, come check us out. You're going to love this place.
What's the controversy, Patrick, put you on the spot a little bit, about the water plant in Weaverville?
Oh, Lord, this is an issue I've been working on very extensively. In fact, Blaine, I can tell you more about water than you ever wanted to know. And I've learned more about water than I ever wanted to know. But, water is a very important infrastructure. And over the years, all towns and counties developed their own water systems independent of each other without thinking of each other. But that made sense at the time. But now we're all going together. And we all, especially on our end of the county, are all dealing with water systems which are inadequate for our present as well as our future. So I'm working with many of our surrounding towns, Mars Hill, Marshall, Woodfin, Buncombe County, on trying to develop a regional water system that will make sure that all of us are guaranteed to have water for our citizens when we need it in case of emergency or in case of supplemental water, as well as being prepared for the future growth we know is coming to our area. It's very boring and complicated stuff, but it's very important. And what I'm really encouraged by is I'm having the opportunity to work with several governments in our region to build a regional infrastructure, which is really, governments so often operate so insularly, if that's a word.
I think so.
But they only build to protect what's in my town limits or within my county limits without thinking that, well, maybe the guy next door would be a collaborative partner. Well, we're trying to build those collaborations, and I think we're making progress.
Where would that be located?
Well, I hate to say what the result might be, but I can tell you that many of the towns around in North Buncombe and Madison County are now cooperating to look at how we can build a system that benefits us all, and where we're not, where we're trying to help each other and not necessarily trying to take advantage of each other.
Okay, something to look forward to. Talk about Patrick being a mayor now, so in the year 2022. Unfortunately, told me off the air, you're not up for re-election until when?
I have 3 more years, so not till whatever that year might be, Blaine.
So, which term is this? Is this your first or second?
This is my first term.
That's what I thought. Right. Yeah.
I've been a mayor for a little over a year. It is I was on town council for a term and a half prior to that.
Well, I'll ask you, but you don't have to answer. So, what are your plans in 2024 or 2025 or something when you run? Are you going to run again? You don't have to answer. But it's like
Blaine, I'm old. I don't know. I hope to. My plan is to make as much impact and move things as far forward as I can during the next 3 years. And where I'll be in 3 years, God, I don't know. I have a hard time planning for next week, let alone 3 years.
Well, is it? But I'll ask you, as a mayor in a local town, is it tough in terms of today's political environment? In other words, forgetting president, Congress, Senate, you name it, but does it come down to the local level? Is it as contentious as other people have to face?
That's a good question. And it's unfortunate that I have to answer, yes, it is.
Is it really?
We run, as many cities across North Carolina, are nonpartisan elections. But unfortunately, during the last few years, it has become much more contentious ideologically. And that's unfortunate because, when we're dealing with in towns across North Carolina are things like infrastructure and schools and buildings and roads and lakes and whatnot, we're not really dealing with cultural issues that much. However, it has become such. So in our last election, it became very partisan and ideological, and that was unfortunate. Luckily, I still won handily. I'm real pleased with that. But let me just give you an example, and this is just one example. So the Weaverville Town Hall is a voting site. In fact, it's a very large voting site. So during the last presidential election, there were lines literally around the block to get in there for days on end. And so some folks felt that they were yahoos and they wanted to do whatever they had to do. So they showed up carrying their guns and their rifles. Now, why would you do that? Only to intimidate people from voting, which is the American way. And I was appalled by this process. So one of the first things I did as mayor is I thought, how can we stop this from happening again? Well, the state prohibits us from passing local laws that restrict guns. However, what I found out is if we own the property, we can do so.
Oh, interesting.
We made it a law in Weaverville that you cannot carry guns on town property. So you cannot carry your damn guns at the election anymore in Weaverville. Now you may think that seems crazy or radical, right? But that was happening. That's how bad the last presidential election was in our country. That people were actually coming to the voting sites, carrying their rifles to try and scare people from voting. That is very distressing to me, and I think it should be all Americans that democracy was that kind of threatened. But it won't happen in Weaverville again.
But let me talk, when you passed the law, was that contentious then, or did people?
There were some angry people, yes, but most people were most pleased. I'll tell you one other thing I had to do. Now, during the beginning of the pandemic, to pass things like a mask mandate or other restrictions to protect the public health, it requires a emergency declaration by the local executive, which is in this case is the mayor. So I had to pass a mask mandate, which most all mayors were doing, right? And so I got loads of messages and emails and calls, and I can tell you that 90% of them were saying, thank you for doing the right thing. 10% of them were against it, but those 10%, they were really loud and really freaking angry. I was a mask Nazi, destroying their freedom, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? The reality is, I can tell you, it was really 90% to 10%. Those 10% were the wacko minority.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're very loud.
They were very loud. Believe me.
Before I forget, I should also give a shout out to two of my favorite Weaverville businesses too. Like I said, I just love driving through. It's just such a sweet place to drive through. And my optician, I don't know if you know him personally, Doug Hauschild, but Doug is my optician right on the main drag there. And I've gone to him for 10 years. And then whenever I go there, one of my favorite places, the pizza place right across the street is
Blue Mountain.
Weaverville Pizza?
Blue Mountain.
Blue Mountain Pizza. Blue Mountain Pizza. One of my favorite places. I just love going there.
Oh, let me just tell you, I'm so glad you said, because first of all, I'm glad you get your eyes checked here. I'm sure you see 20/20 as a result.
Right.
And Blue Mountain Pizza is a local institution,
Right.
and the guy, the owner, Matt Danford, is a wonderful human being who does great charitable work in our community, and has just it's a place that has this great environment. Not only have good food, but it's good atmosphere with good music, and very popular. And
The one place I was disappointed with, I think it closed before I got to go there. But down the road from there was a drugstore. I think it's still there, but they used to serve ice cream. You know what I'm talking about?
I actually know. It's even better, Blaine. It has now been bought out by Prescription Pad, which is a locally owned business.
I saw that, yeah.
Locally owned businesses. In fact, all the businesses on our Main Street in Weaverville are locally owned small businesses. That's good stuff. And now it's called Prescription Pad. They still serve Ultimate ice cream.
Oh, I have to get there then. I didn't realize that.
It's the best. It's still available. So you can go in, get your prescription and an ice cream cone. Come on. That is small town, beautiful America, huh?
Do they talk about small town? Do they scoop it out of, remember ice cream drugstore? You go to a drugstore where they scoop it out?
Absolutely.
Have to
You
go-
gotta come back, sir.
Tell them, seriously, unless I missed it, but I used to come down the drag and you'd always see the sign, and there was ice cream, the sign. I never got to go there. Check it. I don't think they have the ice cream sign as visible as it used to be.
Yes, they do.
I'll be there then.
The name has changed,
Right.
but the atmosphere is the same. Come back to town, sir.
Okay, well, you know what? I will. Great town. And Patrick, just again to repeat, if folks want to find out more about Weaverville, anything we talked about, or anything else they want to find out, best bet is, you said the website has a lot of good information.
It does, and that is weavervillenc.org. Check us out. But even better, come to Weaverville, and when you get off at the exit 19,
Right.
that's where all the businesses are. We have a very prolific and profitable exit on the interstate. But I encourage you to get off of the main street there at the exit and go a couple blocks to Main Street. Make a right-hand turn and go to Main Street, Weaverville. It is wonderful. It is a charming town that you know and you love and you want to be in.
And I'll give you one other thing I love about Weaverville, at least as of today, and hopefully under your administration I'll stay that way, but you can actually drive to Weaverville and not have to pay for parking,
That is
No, you
That's
laugh.
right. You may have to walk a block or two to get where you want to go, but it's free.
But I just saw, you probably are following it too. Hendersonville now is thinking of charging for parking too, so I'm so glad.
Blaine, we people perceive us as having a parking problem as well, but I say we've done studies. We don't have a parking problem, we have a walking problem. You have to walk a couple of blocks to get where you want to go, but it's free. And so one solution is to install parking meters, but we don't want to do that. That's not the atmosphere we want to create. We want to create a walking, biking, sweet town.
It really is. And I thank you for talking about Weaverville and being my guest as always, Patrick. Hopefully I'll see you again in person sometime in the next couple of years at least. Okay, buddy?
I hope to see you in town, buddy.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. As always, a pleasure. See you. Okay, as Patrick works his way out of the studio, or I kick him out, whichever happens first, I'll kick him out first. I'd like to just, before we welcome in our second guest, mention you're listening to the Blaine's World podcast, and we're heard every week at least once, if not twice, and you can catch us. The best bet is to go to BLAINESWORLD.net. You'll see the information about all our guests, and I'm just kind of waiting for our second guest. Joe, if you're listening, come on, join us, and he's right there. Perfect. So as Joe works his way into the studio, again, to remind you that you're listening to the Blaine's World podcast, heard at least weekly, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, and you can be found on BLAINESWORLD.net. And it's next my pleasure to welcome my second guest in today's show. And he's Joe Carroll. And Joe, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching. And
Hello, everyone.
This is the infamous or famous, call it what you want, Joe Carroll, who's an actor, comedian, instructor based in Asheville. He currently teaches classes at Black Mountain Center for the Arts. He can be seen performing in his monthly sketch show, Liars Club, an evening of fake storytelling as improvised solo act Jolo. And in comedy, do Mabel's Baby, a whole bunch of other things. Before I talk more about you, Joe, just tell me, where's the evening of fake storytelling? Where's that playing?
That's going to be at the Story Parlor in West Asheville. It is I can't remember the name of the road. It's like right the intersection of Haywood Road, West Asheville, right next to the taco place, Billy Tacos, Taco Billy. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I haven't been there, but it's a place to visit. And Joe, before we talk more about some of the current things you're doing, the question I always ask when I meet a guest for the first time is, as a kid, you grew up where?
I grew up in Lillington, North Carolina, on a beef cattle farm until I was like 14, and then
Okay.
moved to another spot. Yeah.
And when you grew up as a kid, did you always know you wanted to be a comedy kind of guy?
I was always on. I was always performing. In fact, like I remember looking at old family videos, and not realizing that, like, yeah, like my sister's birthday party, and just seeing all the videos. At some point, I would pop up in front of the camera and like try to make it my show. So I've always been a very performative person.
What was your first gig? Do you remember? First paid gig? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. When I was in college, when I started doing improv. I was in an improv group called Noun, and we would do kids improv at the local schools around there. I think that was the first time I had like a paid improv gig. But I've been doing like I was a stuntman and performer at Tweetsie Railroad, and I've been acting and doing things like that for quite some time.
So do you remember, like I said, have you ever been in shows and stuff too?
Yes. Yeah, I've performed at the Magnetic Theater
Well, I've seen
probably
you, yeah.
around 8 or 9 times, I want to say, over the years.
Yeah.
And a lot of other like Anam Cara and Toy Boat Community Art Space.
Well, I've seen you a bunch of times, of course, at Magnetic Theater. It's always fun. A lot of those are kind of not traditional shows. There sometimes be comedy, or you do a lot of sketch kind of comedy. And in those, I've always wondered, do you do some of the writing as well?
I do, yeah. Actually, during the pandemic, Tom Chalmers did
Yeah.
a sketch show with me and a few other local improvisers, and we all worked on the sketches ourselves. It was a lot of fun.
So the things you do you have a preference, writing or performing?
I prefer performing, but mainly that's kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to improvisation, anyways. But I'm actually working on a couple of sketch projects now, and yeah, working on all different kinds of like performance formats and things like that. So I'm always writing.
Okay. So when you write, I always wonder, when I speak to writers, is this something you do on a regular basis? Do you get up every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning and write for 3 hours, or how does your writing take place?
Well, I've tried that many times. I have accepted the fact that I do not have that discipline. But I will say that, I try to have at least, 30 minutes of like a free write session a day at the very least. Whether, there's not necessarily a lot of structure around that, just getting whatever is in there out. But I always keep a notepad with me, and there's always a page that says sketch ideas and funny stuff, just phrases. And then I go back to it later and I try to figure out what the heck that meant.
Well, my problem is,
Yeah.
can you read the writing? I can't even read my own writing, so that creates a problem. But when you write, talk about improv then, for the folks who don't know about it, and maybe even encourage them to take a course with you at some point in time. How would you describe, I guess, improv as opposed to straight comedy? Or what is improv, I guess?
So improvisation is like live theater. Basically the actors, the characters, the setting, all of that is traditionally made up on the spot. So there's nothing pre-written or scripted in any way. A lot of times the performers will get like a suggestion, and there's a lot of different formats, and that can go in a lot of different directions.
It sounds like it's almost like jazz then, in the sense that I guess you don't have formal written notes, but you have to just kind of wing it as you get an idea.
In a way, yeah. And the more you do it, the more you do kind of find your groove with it, and jazz is a great way to say it. I think I actually think of improv as like a different kind of like form of music altogether. I mean, there's your country improv. I think there's your rock improv, and it's kind of like it's still a kind of new thing. I mean, I guess it's been around since like the 40s and 50s, but there's still a lot of unexplored territory with it.
My fear, and I've only, I think, taken maybe 2 improv courses, but my fear is that what if you get stuck? So you're on stage. I come see you and I always enjoy seeing you, and somebody shouts out something, And do you have a blank? Have you ever blanked?
Oh yes, I've definitely blanked.
What do you do?
Well, I would say, when I was first starting to improvise, you kind of have that deer in the headlights thing, and you hope that whoever you're working with can pick up on that, and so there's definitely a lot of trust and side support and things like that. I always encourage performers, if you see someone on stage having a hard time, well, just go and help them out, yeah. So we're kind of there for each other.
Well, give me an example of that, like in terms of helping somebody out. So you're doing an improv thing, and you're stuck, or I'm stuck. How would you help them out? Let's set up a scenario with me here. So describe an improv situation.
Sure. Yeah. So let's say we have two farmers.
Okay.
I don't know, and they're in a barn, and one of them has like a bunch of hay that they're trying to like shovel, right?
Okay.
And let's say, yeah. So this is an example I feel like we see a lot, right?
Right.
So like
You see a lot of farmers shoveling hay.
you see a lot of people doing a physical action like
Okay.
shoveling.
Gotcha.
And, let's say like I'm shoveling and I know that's what I'm doing, but I haven't told anybody, right? So you see me doing this and you come on stage and the first thing you say is, "Hey, I see you're gardening your flowers," right?
Right.
And you're like, "Oh, right." Like, but I was shoveling, in this improv scene, you wouldn't say, "Hey, no, that's not what that was. This is a shovel, buddy." No, you would say, "That's right, I'm gardening." You immediately go with the flow, whatever was that was given to the scene, whatever someone says, that is what you are. So
Then taking that, and that was fun, Joe, in terms of, I didn't mean to put you on the spot here, but I think but I think it really shows what improv is. So also, the one thing I remember from taking the course, I guess, the magic word is what? A-N-D? Is that what you're supposed to say?
yes, and.
Yes, and so how does that work?
So yes, and means that whatever idea is proposed in a scene, for instance, like you're my great grandpa or something or whatever, that if someone were to say that to me, I'm going to say, "Yes, I agree. I am your great grandpa." And after that, I'm going to say, "And," meaning now that that's established, I'm going to add to this idea. So, for instance, if I ever say like, "Hey, great grandpa, what are you doing for Christmas?" I'm going to say, "Well, I was thinking about whittling you a whistle because I think you'd be great at it, buddy." So like, in that phrase, I said, "Yes, I am your great grandpa, and I'm making you a whistle."
What's the strangest scene, or not necessarily strangest, or up there in memory, that you've ever been asked to improvise? Any come to mind?
Well, so my Jolo, so I do a solo improvise thing,
Right.
where it's just me by myself on stage. And a lot of times I intentionally go to kind of a bizarre place with it. It's really fun. It's very physical. And I usually get a suggestion of an inanimate object that's useful to you. Like, so I did a monologue, like a 5 to 8 minute scene as a coffee maker once. So yeah, I definitely had a lot of fun with that. I did a scene as a bowling ball, as a candle. Yeah, I've done all kinds of. So yeah, it's really fun to kind of embody those things and to give it a character and a personality.
Well, I love it too. The significance of Jolo is that stand for anything, or?
No, I was thinking solo, and my name is Joe. Put it together, genius.
So talk about then. So a single show. So you've actually done a show just you performing improv.
That's right. Yeah, I've probably performed as Jolo. I'm going to say six or seven times, and I'm performing at the Secret City Improv Festival in Tennessee in 2 weeks as Jolo.
Very cool. How long is that show?
It is September 29th and September 30th.
No, I mean, is that an hour show, or is that?
My set is about 30 minutes.
Okay, I mean that's a good set. Do 35 minutes of this. You ever have just the opposite, where you're doing improv and that people don't? What if they don't come forward with suggestions, or they always come forward with suggestions?
Right. I'd say that if they don't, you either make it up on your own, you just try to make a random word up, or you try to pull it out of the audience. And I think crowd work is a big part of it, along with like stand up and everything. If your audience isn't really giving you a lot, then you just kind of keep poking them until something comes out.
Do improv folks have to deal with hecklers at all?
It certainly happens. Yeah. I think the improv hecklers tend to be a little bit gentler, I think. But people assume that you're gonna like say this joke, and they yell it out before you get there, or like, it happens, but not very often.
I don't know if I've ever seen it, but you perhaps have street performers. Have you ever done street improv?
I have actually. I'm just now working on Jolo as a busking performance, just to see what that would be like. So it would be more of like a family-friendly kind of approach with more interactive components to it.
No, you have to tell me, because I'd love to see that. It would just be kind of fun as a street busker. But I can think of a great. I've never seen it in Asheville. There may have been people do it, but it'd be a lot of fun to see somebody, there. I guess the problem is, if you don't have a big audience or any audience and nobody's throwing you stuff, it's probably not very funny, Or I guess you could bring a boombox or something and have, that's how you could do it. You just have, if you don't have anybody giving you ideas, say, press it and say, be a parrot, or be a whatever, or we were in Asheville. I could see you doing this. We had our pictures taken with the snake, so that'd be but I could see you being a snake, Do you have any favorite characters you do, or favorite improv bits you do?
Yeah, I certainly have some kind of like go-to base characters that I do. Like I like to I have a juvenile delinquent kid that comes out a lot. And I'm probably channeling that honestly for my own childhood, but he's there, and he's always up to no good, and he's gonna mess things up, and he usually had too much soda and it's bedtime or something like that. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Physicality is a big part of me, so any opportunity to just kind of be hyper and all over the place. But yeah, I've pretty much done it all at this point. Old man, witch, it's really fun to kind of embody those things.
And one of the things I love watching you perform is, though, in typical, I won't say straight plays, but they're more structured plays at Magnetic Theater. You just seem to really come alive. I guess that's you stepping out of your improv shoes and more into your acting shoes, because do you enjoy acting as well?
I do, yeah. And I went to Appalachian State, and I minored in theater performance. So I did a lot of acting in college. I was probably in 15 plays just in college, and spent more time doing that than my schoolwork. But so yeah, I enjoy doing that, and I feel like they're cut from the same cloth. And the more that I've gotten into improv, I feel like it's definitely helped with stage anxiety, and also just getting comfortable with performing on stage in any capacity.
Have you ever had this problem? You were acting in a play, and all of a sudden you want to do improv. Like you don't like the script, you don't like who you're working with, or something like that, and you want to mess them up. Is that ever a tendency, or do you sometimes forget your acting versus improv? You have to, I guess, balance the two.
Well, I would say that that's only come in when I've forgotten my line. Yeah. When you're like, okay, I'm supposed to be saying something, but I don't know what that is. So I'm just going to kind of give you the basic idea of what that is. So yeah, I try not to improvise too much when I have a script, especially if the director's in the audience,
Well, let's talk about, now some of the teaching you do. But before we do that, Joe, if you could point out some of the cool things about taking improv, it helps everybody, and I've told salespeople, for example, a great thing to be a salesperson. Who should be taking improv courses, or who are they designed for?
Yeah, I'd say it's designed for everybody. It is a great way to learn public speaking, also for self-confidence, collaborating with others. So it's great for team building, for communication, and yeah, it's a valuable resource for anybody for sure.
Because I wish in another life I had a teaching career, and I wish I had some more improv skills, because, you can really, I guess, run with the flow with anything, even in terms of, dare I mention, relationships, it's kind of helpful.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you're stuck in terms of what to come up with next or say next. And talk then about your teaching. So when did you start teaching improv?
I started teaching, I want to say about 8 or 9 years ago. I had done workshops and like one-offs in festivals, like the Dirty South Comedy Festival and others. But then I started teaching at the Asheville Improv Collective here. It was running for about 6 or 7 years, and then stopped after COVID happened. Yeah, I was teaching classes there. We had four different level classes. So basics for improv all the way up to like scenic improvisation. And then I also had a class where I was basically just coaching, established improv groups and helping them, sharpen their tools, so to speak.
Do you have a preference in terms of teaching? Do you enjoying that now more than performing or writing, or I guess you'll tell me you like them all?
Yeah, I feel like they're all kind of tethered together. Especially performing and teaching. They really do go hand in hand. Especially with my teaching style, which is very, I'm not just sitting and watching you do things. We're interacting together, and we're all kind of like filling in the gaps for each other. So it's a more kind of a communal experience.
And you mentioned too, in terms of teaching, or people taking a course with you. A buddy of mine told me that the experience, he recently took your course, I guess, in Black Mountain, and he just said, and I'll ask you to elaborate on this, but he said, dare I mention it, it was fun. Education can be fun. I guess when you teach, you want your students to have fun with it?
Oh yeah, it's a blast. I mean, there's a lot of games and exercises that are, I mean, essentially, if you're having fun, the audience will too. So encouraging that behavior, and also, like, if I haven't said this already, like, play is something that is inherently important. Like it's integral to us. And at some point in our lives, we are kind of, told that
Right.
we're like have kind of like matured out of that time to play, right? But play, yeah, I think play is a muscle that is like important to keep exercising, and it's a way that we connect with each other.
And not to scare anybody off, but you mentioned the word exercise, and dare I ask you to give an example of an exercise. So if I take a course with Joe Carroll, I'm new to improv and I'm putting you on the spot here. I apologize, but I think it's kind of fun to see. I come take the class, and Joe Carroll says, I have I don't know if you call it an exercise, but I have something I want you to do. What's one of the first things you have people do?
I would say, for like a basics improv, I think it's really important for us to kind of get used to physicality and get used to being in our bodies. If that makes sense. So I like to do an exercise where we walk around a set. We just walk around a big open space, and I'll give different suggestions, like imagine that your feet are incredibly heavy, right? And then so you walk around with really heavy feet, like you've got big cement shoes on. So you're walking around, with these big, heavy feet. Like, how does that change the way that you walk around? How does that change the way that you interact with the world? And then like doing those little things, altering your physicality in really small ways can affect your perspective on the world completely. So it's a really great base for building characters and creating a new character for yourself. Like, for instance, or like right now, this is kind of like my neutral position, right? So let's just say I did an exercise where I told you that you were leading by your nose. So now, like, who's this person? Like, what are they into? Like, are they kind of like, are they like nosy, or like all in your business? Like, what is like being led by your nose? Like, how does that affect the way that you see the world and the way that the world sees you?
And what a great look that was, so you learn from Joe Carroll how to act with your nose, or nose front, or something like that. Or any people, I guess, I can kind of guess the answer, but any people, I guess, either better improv, like, is this a natural gift that people have, or worse at improv, or is everybody has to learn? Like, are there any born improv people?
No, absolutely not. No boring improv people. And if there's one thing that I've picked up more and more, like the more I've taught, is that they're definitely like everyone has something that pulls them towards this. Like everyone performs and plays in a different way. Everyone communicates in a different way. So like figuring out what it is that you enjoy doing, what it is that you contribute to a scene is like a really important thing to do. So I feel like that's kind of the direction that I do with my classes is us, we go through an array of different ways to perform on stage. And then you figure out what works best for you, right? Like you've got one person that maybe doesn't speak too much, but when they do speak, they say like really hilarious things, or they just bring in a lot of information at once, Then you have the people that just talk nonstop, and like learning how those people can interact in the scene and help it instead of, taking away from it.
You're teaching me about improv, I guess things I never realized before, which is always kind of interesting. So there's improv, you're talking about people walking around. I guess you can do silent improv and you can do verbal improv. Is that a way to distinguish the two? Like, are there some people who are very good in one type and specialize in one type?
Absolutely, yeah. And I, when you start performing more, you kind of look for people to be like the Abbott to your Costello. You're looking for different types of skills to kind of add to your super team, right? So yeah, like the groups I've been in the past, there's usually one person that's just loves doing like sound effects. There's someone that loves doing like character work. There's someone that there's one thing that we call there's like the straight man in comedy. It was basically the person that's kind of along for the ride, that's just reacting to the things that's happening around them. So yeah, there's all these different kind of types of performers.
In terms of your performing, do you prefer working by yourself or with somebody else?
I feel like this is a cop out, but I appreciate them both equally. I think, I do stuff with Mabel's Baby. It's a comedy duo as myself and Marlene Thompson. We've been performing for maybe 5 or 6 years together, and yeah, it's its own thing. I love doing it. We create. We do 3 character monologues each, and then those characters hang out with each other for the rest of the show, if that makes sense. So yeah, we'll create 3 different characters, and then they'll interact with each other in fun ways. And then Jolo is just me creating environments and doing all the characters myself, and sometimes being a coffee pot. So yeah.
Talk about this. I'm wondering, as you talk about being a coffee pot or anything else, is this something you have to practice or rehearse, between gigs and sets?
I think it is good to not necessarily, it is good to stretch. If you're doing something really physical, it's good to do that. But mentally doing things or turning on the switch to play, to imagining where things are going to go. There's something in improv called A to C thinking. And I think the more you kind of practice A to C thinking, the easier it gets to kind of get into that mode of thinking. So essentially like A to C thinking would be, what is let's say I see a door, right? That's A. B would be opening the door. And C would be whatever's behind it. So instead of spending my time thinking about opening the door, I want to think about what's waiting behind that door. So I'm leaping to a new scenario as fast as possible. So it's a great way to kind of like link things up and build a storyline. And you can do that by yourself. And you're oftentimes in the shower, I'll be showering and just think of something, get a suggestion for myself, like an orange, and just see where I can take that.
When you're out and about, do you ever want to do like an improv in a restaurant or something, or you're getting served, or you go to a show or something, and you just want to see if you can get the person to play with you or have fun with you? Have you ever done that?
Absolutely. And within levels, limits. It's one thing to to play with someone, that is unaware, and it's another to kind of just jokingly like do something. But I'd say if I'm watching improv, a lot of times I'm like, oh, I really want to be up there right now, But it's when I'm in a restaurant, I can behave myself, I guess is what I'm saying.
But the fun thing would be if you didn't behave yourself, or just try to get the waiter going or something, or I told you play an irate customer or something, and just see if you can get thrown out of the place, or whatever. Play with the people.
Blaine, we should go get a coffee sometime. That'll be a lot of fun. Let's even get kicked out.
Well, it reminds me of you were telling me. So, what is Liars Club? So that's coming up, right? What is that?
Yeah, so Liars Club is it's a sketch show that I'm producing. It'll be at Story Parlor. We're going to try to do it as a monthly thing. So the first one will be coming up this Friday, actually, September 9th. And then the next one will be October 29th. We'll have like a Halloween show. And essentially what it is, it's a great bridge between improv and stand-up comedians, and also just funny people in Asheville in general. I don't want to, put a title on that, whatever that is. It's an opportunity for everyone to have to go up on stage, create their own character that they've written in advance, and tell a story, a completely fabricated story of their choosing.
So that's open to the public. If folks want to get information on that show or anything else that Joe Carroll is involved in, what's the best bet?
So if you want to take classes, you can go to Black Mountain Center for the Arts. blackmountainarts.org is the website where they offer classes. There's also Story Parlor, avl.com, and that is where they do Liars Club. And there are a lot of great improv communities in Asheville. Definitely want to, I don't know if now's the time, but I definitely want to promote them as well. So
sure, no, always good. Feel free to give a shout out to anybody you want. But if they just want to track, if they just want to follow Joe Carroll, what's the best way to find out about what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Josie Mosey. I've also got Mabel's Baby Improv is on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel, Joe Carroll YouTube. I should come up with a funnier title for that. And then I've got my classes at Black Mountain and Story Parlor.
And so, best thing then, if you want to get involved in improv, I guess you're going to say is just do it and check it out, and you'll have a good time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you, Joe Carroll, for being my guest on this second half of the Blaine's World. I'm now calling it a podcast, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere, sometime, someplace, or get a cup of coffee. And certainly, I always get a kick out of watching you at Magnetic Theater. It's just you're a real gift to the Asheville community. So thanks for being my guest. And as I wind down, I'll just ask you to stay there for a second, but I'd like to thank Joe for being my guest on the second half of the show, also to Patrick Fitzsimmons being my guest the first half, as well as Cappy Torsetti, my producer. Look forward to having you join us each week on BLAINESWORLD.net is the best way to find out about us. And Joe, as I sign off, I want to have you just stay with me for 1 second. So, as always, a pleasure seeing you, and I look forward to seeing you almost in live, or hopefully we'll be on live, and we'll see you soon.
All right, sounds great.